I'm really disappointed that I can't come and teach poetry at the Buxton Fringe Festival. I thought that poetry teachers would have been on the list of key workers, because good poetry is essential to the well-being of the nation, particularly in troubled times like these. So I've decided to film a poetry masterclass and also show many of the strong links between my hometown of Tamworth and Buxton. Just like everyone in Buxton, here in Tamworth we spent the lockdown sitting in our houses getting drunk. And I've developed a poetry technique perfect for lockdown, and this is called drunken poetry. Now there are 3 stages to drunken poetry. 1, you sit on your sofa. 2, you get really drunk. And 3, you write down whatever comes into your head. Now lots of random thoughts run through our brains, and this is a poem that I recently wrote after, I think it was half a bottle of raspberry gin and 2 cans of cider. I may have had some Pringles, but it doesn't matter. Now this poem didn't make sense at the time, and it certainly doesn't now, but it's a good way to get you started. So I'm going down by the river, over there, to recite my drunken poem. My drunken poem. My first kiss was a disaster. Too much use of tongue. But I loved that border collie we had when I was young. I was a terrible altar boy. I kept falling asleep during mass. I once fell asleep at the wheel and was thrown out of pottery class. Johnny Cash walked the line because Willie Nelson stole his dog. I cried when I lost my granddad out walking in the fog. I want to be an astronaut because floating round is great. I could eat pie and chips all day and never put on weight. Breathing is very Moorish, so is Bacardi and Coke. I sometimes have sex in the kitchen because the egg timer is broke. She loved my pork insider. That should not be misconstrued. She also loves beef Wellington, but it doesn't sound as rude. You're entitled to your opinion, as long as it's the same as mine. If you agree to agree with me, we'll get along just fine. It was a cold, dark, windy night, and there was a tap on the door. What a stupid plumber. I won't use him no more. Santa comes at Christmas and always empties his sack. A girl left me for being arrogant, but I knew that she'd come back. The rich people all eat lobster, but it's fish paste for people like me. A girl I knew once gave me crabs after a day by the sea. I've been drunk texting my ex for hours, although I've no idea what for. I can't remember what I said. Now the police are at my door. How many Pringles are in this can? And should I really care? I'm going to eat every single one till there are no Pringles there. When life and oral sex goes wrong, you must take it on the chin and always write a poem when you're off your tits on gin. Well, that's my drunken poem. Good luck with yours. Have you noticed how some towns sing songs about their rivers? Like people in Newcastle sing songs about the fog on the Tyne, people in Liverpool sing about the ferry across the Mersey. And then I remembered that Annie Lennox had a hit in the 90s with a song called Why. And I wondered if that was about the River Wye, which flows through Buxton. So I googled it, and it's nothing to do with it. So just like Buxton, Tamworth hasn't got any river related songs, which is a surprise really, because in Tamworth we've got 2, the Anchor and the Tame, and this is the confluence behind me. Maybe I could write a song about the 2 rivers. 2 rivers wider than a mile. Perhaps not. Cut that bit out, cut that bit out.
Okay.
Once you've got some drunken poetry written down, take time to reflect on it and see if there's any memories you want to expand on. In my drunken poem, I touched on my formative years, which then inspired another poem about my first pubic hair. My first pubic hair. I was a very late developer. By that, I mean puberty came late. I started to feel inferior to my hairy bollocked mate. On Wednesdays at school, we had cross country, and I would end up covered in mud. But I never went in the showers, although my pong suggested I should. Stinky, stinky bear balls became my new nickname. I could hide from all the bullies but couldn't hide my bare bald shame. Then, one morning upon my waking, I had a look down there. All my prayers had been answered. I'd grown the pubic hair. When Wednesday came, I ran through the mud. I just couldn't get enough. I jumped in the showers, then disappeared. Turned out that pube was fluff. At least Stinky Bare Balls was not so stinky that day, and eventually my testicles dropped. But now I'm in my 50s, it seems they haven't stopped. My sack is slowly heading south. Oh Mother Nature, please. I don't want to be a grandad with knackers round my knees. Now and again, when I'm out and about, I see kids from my old school. They still call me Stinky Bare Balls. Some kids can be so cruel. Now unfortunately, if you get a nasty nickname at school, it can follow you through life. I was out shopping not so long ago and somebody shouted across the street, "Oi, Stinky Bare Balls!" Now I wouldn't mind, but the person shouting was Barry the Bogey Eater, glass houses and all that. But that poem also shows you how to use contrast. The first pubic hair means you're a man. The first time you sit on the toilet and your balls touch the water means you're an old man. Another technique that I teach to my students who are just starting out is a process called thinking in rhyme. No matter where you are or what you're doing, if you see an object, then think of something that rhymes with it. And it's a great habit to get into. Now some people say, well, do poems have to rhyme? And the answer is no. There is a style of poetry where they don't rhyme, and we call that lazy poetry. And poems that don't rhyme are usually written by pretentious wastrels. So with the help of my cameraman, stroke producer, stroke director Brendan, I'm going to show you how this works. I'm just going to pull some objects out and I'm going to ask Brendan to think of something that rhymes with them. You ready, Brendan?
Yep.
Pear.
Stare. Bear. Chair.
Very good, very good. Okay, we'll try this one now. And it's plum.
Drum. Some. Bum.
Excellent, getting the hang of this. Slightly harder now, slightly harder now. Apple.
Grapple. Chapel. Dapple.
Excellent, excellent. And finally, orange. Not so cocky now, are we? As a poet, you will come across some words that are difficult to rhyme, but don't give up, just do some research. There's a hill near Abergavenny in Wales called Bloringe, and I wrote this poem. I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but some people consider this to be the best poem about oranges ever written. I went walking one fine day up a hill called Bloringe. With its beauty all around, I stopped to eat an orange. I came walking down that hill, that beautiful hill called Bloringe. I met a member of Take That. His name was Jason Orange. Now I will point out, as some people will, that Jason Orange is no longer a member of Take That. But if I put in former Take That, it just wouldn't scan as well. And I've also shown you a technique there called poetic license, which is embellishing things a little bit. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't meet Jason Orange when I was out hill walking. It was actually Gary Barlow. And Gary Barlow is really into the outdoors and things like that. Not a lot of people know that Relight My Fire was co-written with Bear Grylls when they went on a camping trip together. It's not on Google, it's a little known fact. I don't know if it's pronounced Aethelflaed or Ethelfled, so I'll do two, and then once we find out which is the right one, we'll use that one, alright?
Okay.
This is the statue of Aethelflaed, but it's a bit noisy here, so we'll go into the town. This is the statue of This is the statue of Ethelfled, but it's a bit noisy here, so we'll go to the statue in the town. I'm here at the statue of Ethelfled, Lady of the Mercians and Warrior Queen, and in Tamworth we're very proud of her. When it comes to breaking the glass ceiling for women, to enable them to fight Vikings, then Tamworth is centuries ahead of anybody else. What I also found interesting was that Ethelfled got rid of the Vikings from Derby, which as we all know isn't that far from Buxton. And so naturally I did some research and found that Buxton had also got some famous historical figures. The DJ Dave Lee Travis was born in Buxton in 1945. Well, during the lockdown, some people have taken the time to learn a new language, and inspired by the Warrior Queen, I've done the same thing, and I've decided to learn the language of women. Now, most women in this country speak two languages, English and fluent sarcasm, so you need to bear that in mind. But this poem is called The Language of Women. When she says, "Have I put on weight?" don't say a pound or two. Learning the language of women is something you must do. When she says, "I'm nearly ready," prepare for a very long wait. And no matter what she's wearing, just say, "Sweetheart, you look great." When she says, "We need to talk," it means listen, don't answer back. It will be a one-way conversation about some life skills that you lack. When she says, "I forgive you," it means she will never forget. And in the future, she'll remind you whenever she's upset. If she's on another diet and says she doesn't want a sweet, you must always be prepared that half of yours she'll eat. If ever she isn't talking, that really saying a lot, it will be your anniversary and it seems that you forgot. If she's angry and says, "Go ahead," do not go ahead. You'll probably end up dead. Do not go ahead. The poem's over now, but I can't emphasise enough, do not go ahead. Never mind learning a foreign language, learn the language of women. It could save your life. I'm here outside the Tamworth Assembly Rooms, which, just like the Buxton Opera House, is a venue visited by some of the country's top acts. But a major event took place here that connects Tamworth and Buxton. In February 1963, the Beatles played here, and a few months later they also played at the Pavilion Gardens in Buxton. This is a poster for the Buxton concert, which hangs on my wall at home. Tamworth and Buxton united by 4 lads from Liverpool. Before we do the next bit, I want to include a bit about Buxton water, because it is the best water in the world. It's the Carlsberg of waters. Now, theatres like the Tamworth Assembly Rooms and the Buxton Opera House put on plays. Now, of course, a play is a way of telling a story, but you can also tell a story with a poem. Now, I always teach my students that a good story poem has to have a beginning, a middle and an end, and have some well-developed characters. I'll show you now with a story poem that I wrote recently. This is the story of a man called Horace. He lived with his wife, who wasn't called Doris, but the name of his wife was Susan or Sue, and I must emphasise this story is true. Horace and Sue were very wealthy, so their lifestyle and diet was of course very healthy. As local gym members, they were also quite fit, and each morning they both had a regular shit. Some news from abroad caused them alarm, for a virus was coming and bringing great harm. Sue told Horace this could be an issue, if ever we have no toilet tissue. Sue followed the news on Twitter, and slowly the realisation hit her. Toilet roll was becoming sparse, and Sue would have nothing to wipe her arse. Horace went to Lidl, Aldi, Asda, Waitrose, and all the small shops where nobody goes. Horace bought every roll in the shop to ensure that he and Susan could plop. He even bought the rolls with aloe vera and the ones with quilts that work out much dearer. He filled up his garage and filled up his shed. He even stored toilet rolls under the bed. Karen on Facebook said, "It's spreading much faster." So Horace went out and bought all the pasta. Surviving the lockdown will be such a breeze, because Horace had bought all the eggs and the cheese. When the order came from Supreme Leader Boris, there was no concern for Susan or Horace, for they'd been panic buying for over a week, while people like us were left up shit creek. The government said, if loo paper you lack, try shoving a garden hose up your crack. Horace ate omelettes and cheese on toast, but Sue loved tomatoes and pasta the most. Horace went for a dump, but nothing came out. He strained so hard till his veins popped out. People caught the virus across the nation, but poor old Horace had constipation. Horace was straining day after day, but not one turd did he flush away. He pushed so hard he put out his back, and then had a massive heart attack. Not one single toilet roll did he need from his toilet tissue mountain of greed. May the Lord have mercy upon his soul, as Horace died with a bunged up bum hole. And the moral of that story, eat plenty of fibre and don't bulk buy and don't be greedy. This rucksack is the same rucksack I use when I'm walking in the hills of Buxton and when I'm in Tamworth writing poetry. But when I'm doing those things, the contents are completely different. I suppose technically this is a health and safety briefing, which is why I'm wearing my high-vis clothes. But let's take a look. Okay, on this side we've got the stuff that's in the rucksack when I go walking down the Goit Valley, places like that. Woolly hat, gloves, waterproof top, waterproof trousers, very important. Water, the only water for me. Sandwiches, first aid kit, map, compass, whistle, and a banana. It's not a real banana, that's just for display purposes, but when I'm walking I do take a real banana. Let's look at the difference on this side. If you're just starting out on your poetry journey, then this is the basic essential equipment that we'll need when you go out walking around looking for inspiration. Firstly, you'll notice the difference. I don't carry waterproof when I'm out writing poetry. No one looks cool in an orange cagoule, so I'd rather get wet than look silly. So I've just got a basic snack there, Pringles. I've got my face guard in case I need to catch the bus home. I've got my pen and of course my notebook. Now, I tend to write better poetry when I've been drinking, but a lot of town centres don't allow you to drink alcohol in public places. But what I've got in here, this is actually, it's 40% vodka and 70% Fanta. So to the untrained eye of anybody else, they think I'm just drinking pop. Just a little tip there, don't obviously put something like Bacardi and Coke in a Fanta orange bottle because you'll get rumbled. And the final thing is, it's a bit like being a surfer, either the poetry flows or it doesn't, but I always carry a book with me to read, to inspire me. And if you only buy one poetry book, then this is it. This is a very, very powerful book. I have to put it down for a second, because if I touch that book for too long, or if I touch it, the poetry of Byron just flows through me. Watch this. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies. and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. See how powerful that is? Anyway, that's just to give you an idea of the basic equipment you'll need when you start going out for the first time writing poetry. Now, the college where I teach has been closed during the lockdown, but I've kept in touch with my students and I have given them some online lessons, and some of them have sent me their own poems by email. Now, this one student, Steve, he's a bit of a ladies' man and he misses going out to the pubs and clubs, so he wrote this poem about an encounter he had at the supermarket. I stared into her empty trolley and she stared into mine, 2 metres apart outside Asda in a rather lengthy line. I said, "Do you come here often?" She said, "I started queuing last week." "So cut the chat, you ugly twat. I'm in no mood to speak." Looks like Steve got the brush off there. I'm sure he'll be okay once the pubs and clubs are open again. Now, another one of my students, Sheila, is a member of a swingers club, and naturally they had to close down during the virus outbreak because socially distanced group sex just isn't possible. Anyway, so they came up with an idea of having a Zoom virtual sex party. I don't know about Buxton, but I would like to point out there is not a swinging or a dogging scene in Tamworth. This is the ancient capital of Mercia. It's a decent town full of decent people. If you want that sort of thing, you'll have to go to Lichfield or Cannock Chase. But anyway, this is Sheila's poem about her online sex party. We held a swingers party on Zoom, although none of the people were in the same room. We dressed in our finest chains and leather and attempted virtual sex together. Some of us danced while others gyrated. Bill just watched and Ken masturbated. Unfortunately, John had a poor connection. His screen went blank and he lost his erection. But we all carried on without any cares, like a porno version of Celebrity Squares. Nice one. Thanks a lot. See you later. The end of our journey around Tamworth brings us to the Lamb, the home of Tamworth Football Club. And in 2018, an event took place here which binds the towns of Tamworth and Buxton together in the history books. On the 28th of July 2018, Tamworth played Buxton Town in a pre-season friendly. Fittingly, the game ended in a 1-1 draw. 2 towns united by football, now united by poetry. I thought, right, if there was a festival in Tamworth now with all these restrictions, I'd get in touch with the club and I'd say, can I do my poetry thing in front of the main stand? Then everybody could sit in the main stand, and bear in mind there's only about 12 people come and see me, so they'd be socially distanced, they'd be outside but undercover, absolutely perfect for a little gig. So what I did was I thought, well, I'm sure Tamworth have let me done it because they're a community minded club.
Yeah.
So I emailed Buxton and said, look, I normally come up with a fringe, can I put something on, standing in front of your main stand, outdoors, socially distanced, etc, etc. Sent me an email back saying, sorry, we can't help.
What do you think about them?
I suppose with everything that's going on, I understand their position.
I know, but really, what do you think about them?
I hope they get relegated and Matt.
It's alright.
Hang on, kids put me on. Ready to roll?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. What's that?
Something inside there.
I've got a poster that hangs on my wall celebrating that very... Oh, cut that. Fuck it, I'll do it again. Okay. Rolling.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
I'm here outside the Tamworth Assembly Rooms, which, just like the Buxton Opera House, is a venue carry on. Cut.